Hello and welcome to a new CineCola video podcast. On this one, we will be looking at the top 10 films I viewed and reviewed from the 58th BFI London Film Festival. Apologies for my voice, I'm speaking from Galway, Ireland, and it's very windy, rainy and miserable here, so it was bound to happen, me getting sick. But still, the show must go on. And before I start, I want to say that this was a very strong edition of the festival, and I enjoyed it a lot more than last year's one, probably because I had a lot more fun this time, and I had a lot more fun with it. But this top 10 does not include films that I watched at previous festivals. Some great titles like Foxcatcher that I watched in Cannes, Victoria I watched in Carl Vivari, Something Must Break in Rotterdam, 71 in Berlin, and so on and so forth. The list is really endless, but that's kind of the nature of the London Film Festival. It's kind of like a best of films that have been shown throughout the year at other festivals with a limited number of premieres, but it's still a huge program, and there's loads to see, and there's always loads of great films. And this was not an exception. But that's also why the CineCola Top 10s are always quite alternative, and I like it that way, and I hope you will enjoy discovering these titles fully endorsed by me in the near future. One more thing, the list is in order of preference. So having said that, let's get cracking. Number 10, The World of Kanako by Tetsuya Nakashima. The story of The World of Kanako revolves around an ultimate anti-hero figure. A former cop whose life of violence is affected by supposed mental illness but definite substance abuse. His ex-wife calls him up begging him to find her sweet daughter, a desperation move given the violent event that broke up their marriage. This event leads him down an Alice in Wonderland-like black hole, which, as it deepens, leads him to discovering that his estranged daughter is not as innocent and a lot more like him than he thought. Tetsuya Nakashima's vision is an admirable, crazy rollercoaster ride that is loud, fast, and which at times, with its hyper-stylization and lack of fully likable characters, feels like a direct attack on the viewer, further conveyed by drastic changes in tone, mood, and atmosphere that represents the surreal insanity of both the narrative and the characters themselves. Number 9, Mr. KAPLAN by Alvaro Brechner. In this film from Uruguay, an old man suffers from late life crisis and, along with a down and out unemployed man whose family has left him, seeks redemption by setting off on a ludicrous investigation on a German man he believes to be a former Nazi. A comedy full of humanity that, despite its wide range of laugh-seeking moments from deadpan to slapstick, deals with certain themes of heavy emotional importance such as old age and the way in which the lives of each of us are heavily affected by past events and history. Alvaro Brechner makes sure to keep the visuals simple to flatter the greatly balanced screenplay and likable performances by the cast that also further accentuate a touching human approach that further tastefully balances the drama with the comedy in Mr. KAPLAN. Number 8, Mark Quinn Making Waves by Jerry Fox. Many would disagree on having this entry in the top 10, as many did not even think this film was up to festival standards and belonged in an art gallery as part of an exhibition. Nevertheless, this might be the festival's greatest underrated film due to its understated nature that, with its fly-on-the-wall tactics, actually reveals the wacky and gullible side of the art world that is not often explored in films of the kind. For Making Waves, Jerry Fox also enjoyed his personal closeness and friendship to the artist and prime subject of the documentary, Mark Quinn, one of the biggest names in modern art today, whose fascination with just about anything is as genial as it is ludicrous. The interactions between the two men, filmmaker and artist, is also unusual and curious and reveals the intimacy shared between the two. In the end, the film flatters the art, but exposes the art world around it without flattering it or even celebrating it, and that is what makes this particular documentary so interesting. Number 7, Three Hearts by BENOIT JACQUOT. In short, Three Hearts is a story of how an everyman, if not downright loser, falls in love with two sisters and how a series of freak accidents and cruelty of fate gets in the way. This story of bizarre love triangle is eccentric and lacks romanticism, resembling more a tragedy a la David Lean, a Leo McCarey melodrama, or even a noir with Hitchcockian influences. This strange mix of influences is bold and daring considering the many twists and turns, as well as the relentless pace that points out to inevitable disaster and self-destruction, which is bound to leave some viewers feeling more angry than anything else. However, it's plain to see that through this quasi-obnoxious elegance, that is exactly what it sets out to do from the start, also by flattering the imperfections and vulnerabilities of its three pivotal characters. In other words, mission accomplished. Number 6, Night Bus by Simon Baker. London, a constantly moving city of contrast, lively and decadent all at once. What better way to capture its essence than by following the stories of a series of characters whose lives crisscross on a night bus. Its narrative is straightforward and in real time, and despite the restrictions of the setting, a skillful camera work both flatters and draws from the claustrophobic appeal of the bus setting. A clever screenplay and a good solid entertaining pace makes the film all the more entrancing, while shifts in atmospheres, moods and genres from dramatic to comedic are impressive in the genuine representation and realist nature of Night Bus, which in a short time intrigues or indeed links us emotionally to the many characters that meet meet and even interact with strong casual magnetism. Number 5, Moomins on the Riviera by Xavier Picard. Tove Johnson's lovable critters come to life on the big screen in Xavier Picard's Moomins on the Riviera. The adorableness of the animation, hand-drawn and for that reason standing out among the hordes of 3D animation features that are starting to worryingly look the same, is conveyed by an impressive sense of humor that allows the film to be just as enjoyable to children as it would be to an adult audience. The narrative adds to the fun with its essential randomness. If we were to narrow it down in any particular way, we could say that these hippo-like creatures named Moomins and their friends set off from their peaceful and quiet little island to check out the exciting vibes of high society on the Riviera, only to gradually discover it less impressive than they had initially thought. The film's fun and funny appeal is tastefully completed by a vaudevillian vibe that takes us back to the days of early slapstick, while the gags in themselves are impressive and creative. Moomins on the Riviera is simply an impressive and creative piece of family cinema. Number 4, The Narrow Frame of Midnight by Tala Hadid. A film about the unpredictable journey of life and the stubbornness and vulnerability of humanity. Tala Hadid's film The Narrow Frame of Midnight is a meditative and interactive experience enhanced by a wonderful fluid camera work and shifts in rhythm where the narrative leaves some grey areas in order to actively involve the audience to fill in the gaps of a film with a story where the chance and randomness of life is greatly represented and even celebrated. The story revolves around a young girl who was first kidnapped by 2 criminals, then rescued by an Iraqi-Moroccan writer, then left at the house of a French teacher who gets emotionally close to her. All this shows in an amazingly hypnotic way that life is not just a succession of casualty, but also a journey of missed opportunities, gained opportunities, and constantly requiring bravery and constant evolution of the mind. Number 3, X plus Y by Morgan Matthews. The mathematics of love are explored through the love of mathematics of a young man who undergoes a coming-of-age experience after he is handpicked and shortlisted as a member of the British squad at the International Mathematics Olympiads. But this is far from being a simple film about a math prodigy or boy genius, which has been seen in cinema time and time again. X plus Y by Morgan Matthews, in fact, in his fiction film directorial debut after a celebrated career in documentary, is a deep examination of love which looks at the different emotionally intense facets of its pivotal thematic subject: the need to give love, the need to have it, the inability to understand it, and so on. Wonderfully shot with moments of creative artistic visual delight that even allows us to experience things from the viewpoint of the central character who suffers from Asperger's syndrome. This film is never sympathetic of its characters and struggles, but rather tries to represent them and understand them in order to make for a much deeper and more genuine portrayal of familiar emotions and elements. Number 2, 6 Desires, D.H. Lawrence in Sardinia by Mark Cousins. Mark Cousins strengthens his reputation as one of the most inspiring travel-themed essay documentarians in the world at this moment in time. With 6 Desires, he has also come to a great fulfillment of a unique stylistic approach that is bound to influence hordes of filmmakers out of the niche and loyal audience that his films enjoy, much like the Velvet Underground did in music back in the day. With this latest work, he interacts with famed and celebrated writer D.H. Lawrence, whose travels through Sardinia in 1921 were the subject of an obscure and widely unknown book that he wrote with his wife. This sets Mark on a travel and a discovery of the writer, of himself, of the settings, and is driven by an infectious and meditative stream of consciousness that also flatters the theme of traveling and the delight of discoveries made on travels. Number 1, Whiplash by Damien Chazelle. The talent and the master. A jazz drummer with great potential enrolls in a highly regarded music conservatory and is picked as a member of a mentor's band. A mentor with a reputation for being particularly demanding, if not downright bullying. The music is great, the cinematography is precise, and the performance by J.K. Simmons as the mentor, at once malignant and appealing, as well as Miles Teller as the Rocky-like Cinderella story's central subject, are amazing and amplify the emotional intensity of the story. Whiplash is a film of bravado and confidence all around, the type that should be identifiable with all great jazz musicians, the kind that are forever to be remembered and loved. It also seems to be an ultimate embodiment of many genres and influences, including jazz music itself, that have left a heavy mark on American filmmaking. By the end, the intensity and excitement of the film, the representation of obsession, will have the audience on the edge of their seat, ready to jump up on their feet with hysteria with the film's final powerful and unforgettable sequence. So thanks very much for listening, thanks very much for watching this video. Keep reading CineCola, keep listening to Fred Film Radio. I'm Matt Micucci, so long.